Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. You are listening to the Green Guardian Show on Radio Haj. You're listening to myself, Aamenah Patel. I'll be your host for today. And today I'm joined in the studio by Saana from the Plant Kitchen and Muhammad Faheem from Islamic Relief. How are you both?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good, and thank you for having us here today.
Pleasure.
Alhamdulillah, yeah. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah feekum. So today we're going to talk about meat consumption, Al-Adha, and many listeners might have heard the calls of environmentalists the past few years have been calling for people to reduce their meat consumption because meat consumption is bad for our planet and our climate. And we'll be discussing this today. It is a rather controversial subject, so we'd love to hear your views. We're live on our Instagram page right now, so please head over and tell us your thoughts and your comments on this topic. I'm here with Saana and Muhammad Faheem specifically because they have reduced their meat consumption in the past year for many reasons, and we'll delve in that today later on. I think the first thing to kind of understand is, why is eating meat bad for the planet? Surely it's a good thing. Allah made animals for us to enjoy and to consume. What is actually wrong with eating meat? Saana, please enlighten us.
I think the mass meat production is a leading cause of climate change, of water waste and deforestation. And that's the main reason that we always ask people to reduce their meat consumption.
Okay. Can you explain a bit more? So deforestation, what's that all about when it comes to meat?
Okay, so can you imagine one football pitch? Can you imagine one size of a football field, how big that is? So every minute in the world, a land of 7 football fields is bulldozed to make space to create more room for farmed animals and growing their crops.
And these farm animals eventually will be slaughtered for us to consume.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, right, okay. And obviously to feed those farm animals, you need to water, you need to give them food, and that requires a lot of energy use, and I guess that also contributes to carbon emissions.
It does, because meat production wastes a ton of water. It takes up to 1,800 gallons of water to produce just 1 pound of meat, which is a lot.
That is a significant amount of water just for 1 pound of meat. And
just
to think about how many pounds we go through on a daily basis, that's quite staggering.
It's a lot. It is, yes.
Is.
I'm guessing you also have like all the vehicles, tractors, etc. you've got to use to maintain the land for the animals and stuff.
All the carbon footprint that's involved, yes, of course.
An interesting statistic that I read a while back was the meat industry caused more emissions than the transportation industry, which is just shocking.
Yeah. And
that is shocking.
Yeah, I think it's 15% of all carbon emissions are down to dairy and the meat industry. Right, and to think we're contributing to that on a daily basis is quite shocking, really.
It is, yes.
And by the time it gets to your local butcher or supermarket, it's travelled thousands of miles. I mean, maybe for us in the UK, our meat is mostly HMC. It's still from the UK, but still it has travelled miles to get to us. It's gone through lots of processes which all produce carbon, and carbon is bad for our climate, as we know. So yeah, that's I think that's the main reason why people are calling for.
Also a little bit more, I guess, humorous, but obviously cattle also produce their own emissions when their own methane, which is also a big contributor towards climate issues as well.
Yes, and all that waste goes to river at the end, and it is a big polluter. Yes. So we need to be careful of that also.
Right. Thank you both for that. So you both, over the past year, have reduced your meat consumption a little bit, significantly. Muhammad Faheem, starting with you, what sparked that reduction and what have you reduced so far?
So I think I mentioned last time we came on during Ramadan that the whole Ramadan and the 2 months before that I was completely free of eating chicken. And what really sparked it, I guess, wasn't so much the environment. That's the things I've come to learn more after. It was more to do with the welfare of the animals. So when we talk about why meat consumption is bad, I'm not of the opinion that eating meat is bad, but because we as a general population don't understand moderation.
Yes.
So what we end up doing with anything that we do is we end up over-consuming, and then when we over-consume, it's everything that has to take place to enable enough supply to be there. This is what's really bad, and for me it was a lot to do with the treatment of the animals, and that treatment comes not because it's the natural process of farming, but because we want to produce as much as we can with the least costs as we possibly can.
So the ruthless way animals are farmed for our consumption, is that what?
That was my primary driver, yeah.
Was there anything particular? Was it a documentary or something you saw or read that actually
I can't actually pinpoint it to one thing. For me, it's been a long-standing thing. So for years, I've always not liked the way that things happen with animals. So a long time ago, I reduced my milk. That was one of the first things that I did, was reduce my milk. A lot of that came down to the fact of the treatment of mother cows and the way it was baffling to me that a cow produces milk primarily for its own offspring, yet in the farms the offspring is taken away from the mother so that there's enough milk remaining to, and then the baby cow is given powdered milk. So I think it started off with milk initially, and then just understanding more and learning more of how things happen in the industry was definitely a big driving factor.
That's fascinating. And I think there's recently been some documentaries. I think washing them will turn off anybody of meat for life.
Oh yeah, not meat, then fish was one.
And fish as well.
Fish was one that I pretty much completely stopped fish after watching Seaspiracy.
Yes.
So I think what Muhammad Faheem is saying, that, eating meat inherently isn't wrong. It's something that Allah has allowed us. It's something, a luxury for us. But because of the modern world, the processes, it's just become such a ruthless production, a way of living, that it wouldn't be right, wouldn't sit well with you as a Muslim to eat that.
Because I remember reading something, I can't quote the hadith or the source, but I remember reading something a long time ago, and this was when I was much younger, so I can't really remember, but where I think a companion felt guilty about the slaughtering of the animal, and I think the response was that you're not really meant to not feel guilty, you're meant to feel something. That's why you have the compassion, and that's why we're instructed to do things with excellence, to use a sharp blade to reduce pain. And I think in overconsumption, that all gets lost. Like, you lose that fact that you're actually meant to have compassion for the animal that you slaughter. It's not like meant to be some quick thing where you just chop its head off and then you're able to eat it.
Eat it without any feeling or connection to the actual process, subhanAllah. And yourself, Saana, I think you had a similar journey?
Yes, so back in 2008, while I was studying in France, I just couldn't eat meat anymore because of the cruelty and because I had health issues because of eating meat. So I just decided to cut down on red meat and chicken. I was still eating fish. I was pescatarian for a long time. 2 years ago, I decided to stop fish and I became a full-time vegetarian. And then while I was looking into documentaries, and I think you know a bit about my journey of volunteering in Sri Lanka and how animals were treated, I just decided that I couldn't go ahead with this anymore, and I needed a diet that would match my beliefs and values. So I decided to go vegan last year when lockdown started, because I had more time to make my own meals, look into it, and understand where my food is coming from. That was one main thing that was really important for me. So yes, I became vegan like that since last year.
If it's not too personal, but I just wondered what kind of health issues did you face from eating meat?
I was just feeling bloated, constantly sick and tired, and I had a lot of food poisoning.
Really?
Yeah, so I just decided to stop, and my health has really improved since then. And yeah, I feel.
So I had a friend of mine who came from Portugal to the UK, and once he was in the UK, he developed asthma, which he'd never had before, and he stopped drinking milk, and the asthma went away. So I think it says a lot about, because of the way we consume, then what happens to the animals, the antibiotics, everything that goes into the system. It was just really weird. And then he stopped and the asthma went away again.
I've heard that with a lot of people being allergic to milk here. It's really strange.
Me too. I've had family who became vegan and all their illnesses went away just like that. It's amazing. Something you said really struck me, Saana, about the things that you're putting in your body weren't kind of matching up to your beliefs and values. And I think that's something we often forget as Muslims. We're so outwardly practicing. We make sure we pray all our salahs, we fast, we pay our zakat, but we don't really pay attention to our consumption. We think halal and that's the end of it. It's HMC or it's certified, but actually it goes further than that. Is it actually tayyib? Is it well produced? Is it well looked after before it gets into my plate?
Of course.
And I genuinely think that those kind of things we ignore all affect our spirituality. If I'm eating an animal which has been treated cruelly or abused in some way, or the farmer hasn't been paid correctly for growing the vegetables, that dhulm, that cycle of oppression, is going to affect my heart or soul somehow.
Yes.
Something to think about.
It is. And I think when you mentioned Seaspiracy, they mention about slavery in the fishing industry. That's something I never thought of. And when I saw that, I was really affected by it. And I said, you don't want to be part of that industry. You don't want to be supporting that kind of industry.
Certainly.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That was what a big driver was for me anyway. I don't want to partake in a system that operates in this way. But I think my insight anyway, that one of the issues I find is when people are unwilling to pay a higher price for higher quality.
Yes.
So I think when that happens, it becomes really difficult for people to switch from trying to get the cheapest, most fastly produced meat to buying, like an organic chicken costs £17, and you can get 3 chickens for £5 if you go somewhere else. So it's hard for people to make that
choice.
That switch.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same argument that we have when people are turning vegan. Organic and vegan food does cost a lot more than non-vegan food, and that's putting people off to actually change their diets.
Yeah, I find that because as Muslims we don't support the businesses that produce higher quality, they basically fade away. So I've seen in my time, I've seen so many of these farms come out trying to make halal tayyib food from organically reared, but then because the support's not there, because the price has to be a bit higher,
yes.
slowly they just fade away, and then the options just go back to being the normal options that we've always had. So I think as a community we have to do more to say that we want higher quality and we're willing to pay the higher price for the higher quality as well.
Of course, yes.
Absolutely. I think there's also a balance, because there are families who genuinely cannot afford to buy good quality things. It's a bit like the argument of takeaway food just being so much cheaper than good organic local produce. It just tends to be a lot cheaper, so more accessible and easier for families to feed their children, takeaway or unhealthy foods than actually healthy foods. So I think if we as a community support these businesses, these things will become more accessible, inshallah, for all.
Yeah, it's like anything, any new innovation that happens, it starts expensive, and once people adopt it, the price eventually comes down. So I think we've just got to get past that stage one.
And I think we can see this with meat alternatives in supermarket. At the beginning, they're really expensive, and now they're very affordable.
But I also think meat should be expensive. That's what will limit your consumption as well. If you pay £5 for 3 chickens, you'll just keep going back. But if you pay £17 every time you need a bit of chicken, you might have it like once a month. Or
you'll limit your consumption. True.
I think that's something we're pushing for. We're not saying people to eradicate meat totally out of their diets, but to reduce it significantly. And when you do eat meat, to have it have good quality meat, which is ethical and organic or whatever, but well looked after animals which you're eventually eating. So I think that's what we're pushing for.
Yes, and one of the reasons it's your health. You need to look after your health, so you need to eat good food.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. And so many people. You see the improvements in their health, their skin, everything once they adopt a more vegetarian-based diet. And that is because the vegetables contain most of what people don't get in their diet. Protein's good for you, of course, but you can't just have the protein. So you've got to have a bit of everything. And I always look at my father-in-law because he's in his 60s now. And alhamdulillah, till today, he's not on a single medication. Most people his age from this ethnic background are on so many medications. And he's not meat-free, but he's very conscious of how much he eats. Yes. And he's very he makes sure that 70% of his diet is fruit and vegetables.
Wow.
And through looking after his diet, he's in this position where today he has, alhamdulillah, no illnesses where he's got to take medication. And I can't think many people from our ethnicities can name their family members over 60 who aren't on blood pressure medications, aren't diabetic, or don't have other illnesses.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, so questions for both of you. When you cut down meat, went vegan or whatever, what were the main difficulties? Let's start with prices. Being vegan or vegetarian can be more expensive. What did you do, Saana? What was something you faced, one barrier you faced?
Prices, of course, when it came to looking for alternatives, so meat, for milk. Getting something like soy milk or almond milk was really expensive, and you, as we discussed, you do want something of a good quality. You don't want something that's mainly made with water. So yes, price was a big thing, and getting vegan produce stuff from supermarkets was hard when I became vegan. It's easier now, I think, but a couple of years ago it was really hard.
Now you can walk into a supermarket and there's an entire plant-based section.
Yes, it's really wonderful to see, actually.
But I agree definitely about the price, because even stuff like oat milk, when I buy oat milk, like it's more expensive than the milk, and it finishes in like a quarter of the time because it's only
That's
only
much smaller.
big.
It is, yes.
Yeah. So what else in terms of prices, Mohammed Faheem, have you struggled with?
So along with prices, I think one of the key struggles that I had anyway was I didn't find it difficult to stop eating meat. Like I didn't miss the taste. I thought I would, but I didn't miss like, I need meat or had that craving for meat.
Can I just ask, like, when you stopped eating, was it just literally cold turkey? Unintended there.
I'm not having chicken.
Did you have any like withdrawal symptoms? Because people, when they cut out sugar, they get headaches and dizziness.
Nothing that I noticed. I wouldn't be able to say that I noticed anything.
Okay.
Maybe my wife would say I was cranky. I don't know.
Perhaps you would.
But I didn't notice anything whatsoever. But what I found was a big challenge was it's easy to say, okay, I'm not going to eat this. But when you're not the only person in your house, and especially if you're not making all the food, it can be difficult to start saying, well, this is what I want to eat. So that was definitely a big challenge.
And also, socially, if you're going out to eat a restaurant, if you're going to a halal restaurant, unfortunately, there aren't any vegetarian options.
Yeah, that's one thing that I found really difficult actually, is because of my job is 99% on the road. Like I'm rarely at home, and you just got to stop at takeaways and stuff. It's really hard to find decent food that's vegetarian while you're driving around. Really
you can't
hard.
just have chips every time.
No, otherwise it's just you can't. That was a really big challenge.
What about you, Saana? Did you face the same problems?
Yeah, I have to check menus before I go to the restaurant to make sure that I'll find something, and it's difficult.
It's just like a veggie burger, and I don't want a veggie burger.
Yeah, I think I read a tweet yesterday that most takeaways only have like sides as options for vegans, like cheese, not even cheese balls, salads, yeah. So there's really, really quite limited. So you have to do your research before you go out to eat.
Yes.
I think one of the benefits though alongside that challenge is I always enjoyed cooking anyway, but I just kind of put it on a back burner and I didn't really do it much. But since having to okay, I don't want to eat this, so I'm going to make my own food. And that was good as well, to be honest, like just coming back into cooking, trying different things.
Yes.
Discovered a lot of new cuisines that I don't think I would have discovered otherwise.
That's nice.
So.
What's the new dish that you've discovered?
I love Turkish food. So I always thought Turkey was a big meat-based diet, but it's really not. I know we go to Turkish restaurants and that's all you see, but Turkish food is largely based in vegetables. Some really amazing dishes. Okay. There's a book by someone called Özlem.
Oh.
Özlem, yeah. Her book is full of really good recipes. She has meat recipes too, but her veg recipes are really nice.
Have to look into it.
Yes. Okay. And in terms of socializing with family and friends, if you go to your parents' house or a friend's house and they have nothing you can eat, what do you do in that situation? Do you give in? Do you have that milk with dairy milk in it?
This is my personal thing. It depends on what it is. So if it's certain things, I'm quite used to be like, no, I'm not eating. So I'm quite used to that because a long time ago I gave up eating fried food and stuff, and just completely. And you can imagine even that's difficult because in Asian households, especially like Ramadan and stuff, everybody's frying. So I used to go to my grandparents' house and there's a fully fried dinner, and I'm just saying I'm not eating. So I've kind of gotten used over that thing of feeling worried about people and what they might think.
Yes.
What about yourself, Saana?
I wouldn't have meat because I just can't have meat anymore, fish, but I would have something vegetarian then. Yes. I'll try not to upset or put pressure on the host, but
no, so I always kind of just made it a point that I'm not expecting you to do anything different for me. Yes. So I'll get myself something. So I'll just go to the shop and bring something.
I've had scenarios where I would cook and bring it to my friends or my family. Yes, just to
and
be
I guess
sure.
we have to make that socially acceptable.
I think you should try just know beforehand. You should know what to expect, and then just if you know that you need to bring something, just explain this is why. And most times people are.
Yeah. Do you find people think that you're very odd when you explain it to them?
Yeah, I find a mix of people. So you find some people that are really they feel inspired, and then you find some people that just look at you like you're nuts.
Have you ever been ridiculed? Because there is this anti-vegan campaign. Vegans have this reputation.
Yeah, there's an anti-vegan campaign at the radio station.
There certainly is.
I have someone tell me that I'm Muslim and by not eating meat I was going against what Allah has said.
I've had people say that as well.
Yes, I've had that.
And I'm not trying to say it's not halal to eat meat.
Yeah, so let's dissect that. And because I think it would be wrong for someone to say Islam is a vegetarian religion or vegan religion, because that's not the case.
No.
But in your cases, I think it's more rewarding. What you're doing is more rewarding because you're standing against animal cruelty and these modern processes which are so ruthless and so evil, really, and very capitalistic as well.
Yes.
So I think your stance is more Islamic. Now, if it was a local cow or sheep or chicken or whatever that's being well looked after, if it's a cow in your back garden or chickens that you keep or hens, which eggs you eat, that wouldn't be as bad at all.
No.
And it should be, you should eat that chicken or those eggs. But if you're going to eat, what I think is your stance and what you're doing is actually more rewarding if done with the right intention, of course.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the intention is to try and not be a part of something that you shouldn't be a part of. But that is something I've heard. I've had people say to me like, well, it's halal, and it's like, it's haram that you're not eating it. And I'm like, oh. So that's a challenge in itself. But yeah, like I said, we're not saying that. I'm not saying to anyone that meat is not allowed. Like that's not the case at all. I'm just conscious of how we select the meat that we eat. There was another hadith that always stuck out to me was when there was a bird that was circling above the head of the Prophet ﷺ, and it was like in clear distress, and the Prophet found out that somebody took the egg or the baby or something along those lines.
I think it was a chick from its mother. Yeah.
And he was like, return the baby, and because you shouldn't be putting the animal into distress. And if these aren't like signs enough that we should be more careful of what treatment we give to animals, then I don't know what is.
And that says a lot about how we should be treating animals.
Absolutely. I think also in this whole subject, taqwa comes up. Taqwa means being really conscious of Allah. And if we had true taqwa in terms of our eating habits, we'd not be eating meat or gobbling it up at the rate that we do at the moment, because taqwa is to have, higher consciousness of Allah and thinking about everything. Are there any comments on our Instagram page?
There's actually one comment, and it says that the Prophet ﷺ diet was mostly fruit and veg too. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. As was for centuries, meat was a luxury. Unlike how it is today, it wasn't a staple food. It was something ate on a rare occasion, and they made good use of it. But obviously the tables have turned. It's now become our staple food, and veg isn't our staple food, unfortunately. So yeah, what that person said is absolutely correct. Prophet ﷺ did eat mostly vegetables and lentils and did not eat meat on a regular basis like how we do
today. Yeah.
And that's the great example, is that it's not saying he did not eat meat, it's just that it wasn't regularly.
Yes. And he did enjoy meat. We learn from hadith that Prophet ﷺ, he enjoyed eating certain parts of the animals. There's nothing wrong with that. But obviously those animals were not from, miles and miles away. They were well looked after. It's completely different. So I think people, when they make that comparison, they're doing injustice there to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ.
I think we always talk about a balanced diet, and what we are against is this mass killing, how it's happening. Yeah. That's what is wrong.
It's simply just that overconsumption leads to poor care.
Yes,
that's all it is.
Have a balanced diet.
It leads to poor care, and that's what's happening around the world.
Of course.
I think also there's a figure, so as Muslims in the UK, we are 5% of the population, but we consume 20% of all meat consumed in the UK. So I shall repeat that for listeners. As Muslims in the UK, we are 5% of the population, but as a community, we consume 20% of all meat consumed in the UK. That's a lot. Horrific. That's horrific.
A lot.
That really is. Right, so question for Muhammad Faheem. The image of a typical Western male in today's day and age is of a man, very masculine, flipping burgers at the barbecue. It just seems very unmanly for a man to start eating vegetables and to say no to meat.
I have people in my family that say I'm not a rabbit, so I'm not going to eat rabbit food.
Yeah. So how have you combated that? Have you ever?
I've never really thought about it, to be honest. I remember a few years ago I actually put a post on Facebook and I said it doesn't make you any more of a man because you eat meat or because you contribute to the. It takes more of a man to stand up and say that this is wrong and I'm not going to do it. That is what a man should be doing. So I don't think meat and masculinity should be tied together in any way, shape or form. It's just another social construct. And people that think that defines their masculinity, to me, are just falling into the category of being sheep, which nobody wants to be a sheep.
That's perfectly put answer. I mean, I wish everyone could think like that, but I think that idea of masculinity is quite damaging, because I can tell you from the Green Guardians Leicester, you're only one of the few men who are in our group the rest are all women, because caring for the environment, unfortunately, seems to be a very feminine thing, and it seems to threaten the idea of masculinity. Like, a man cannot be seen with a tote bag going in the shop. It just, there are articles and studies about this, that being green is a threat to a man's masculinity. And I think we need to challenge that, because the Prophet ﷺ, he was the ideal example of a man for us, and he was.
But it's like most of the things that men think takes away from their masculinity. For example, taking your rubbish out of your house, which again was something the Prophet ﷺ really cleaned after himself, and he did all that after himself. So we need to start taking the right example of what it means to be a man. I think that's the
true.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Saana, your thoughts on this? Have you come across any of these beliefs?
No, I just feel that on Instagram I'm getting a lot more feedback comments from women than from men. It's rarely men who would get involved, but it's a lot more women trying to make changes. Yeah.
And the supposedly female characteristics of nurturing, of caring, are absent from the supposed male image, isn't it? That's really unfortunate, because the Prophet ﷺ was the most caring, most nurturing, most loving individual, ﷺ, and we need to recapture that.
What my experience anyway is that there actually are probably a lot more men than most people think that care about these things. They just don't openly talk about it.
True.
So if I talk about it to them, they'll talk about it, and they have the similar ideas and similar mindset, but they wouldn't go around telling everybody that they think that.
They're making those changes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, some quick fire questions for both of you. What did you have for breakfast, Saana?
So this morning I had coconut milk with cereal with coconut milk, and for lunch I had salad.
Salad. Lovely. What about you, Mohammed
At least you
Faheem?
get to have lunch by this time. My breakfast today was just a banana. Like that was it.
Nice. And what do you plan for having dinner, if you're having dinner, that is?
I'm really craving pasta today, so
Okay.
I think I'm going to have pasta.
Mine's is in my wife's hands today. So I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Now, summer is barbecue season. Barbecue equals meat in many people's eyes. What would you do on a barbecue?
So if I was invited, or if I were to make
If you were
barbecue?
holding the barbecue?
Oh, definitely tofu. There's so many tofu, pineapple, watermelon. Barbecue them, yes, definitely.
I've never barbecue a watermelon.
Yes, it's really nice.
Do you put anything on top of it?
Nope. Just barbecue it like that and eat it. It's really nice.
Try that next time.
But you can also, most supermarkets sell a lot of meat-free burgers, which you can just stick on the.
What would you put on a barbecue?
Maybe a meat-free burger.
Okay.
If I was going meat-free.
I was at a barbecue about 2 weeks ago, and it was just an absolute meat fest. I was thinking of this
and
program.
Sweet corn is amazing on a barbecue.
Sweet corn is nice.
Sweet corn and vegetables.
Oh,
I mean,
kind of
so many you can do, right?
Yes.
There's so many. So somebody listening to the program and they're thinking, okay, I'm convinced I want to reduce my meat consumption for my own spirituality, to protest against brutality in the meat industry. How can they start? Can we have some really basic tips for them, please?
So if someone wants to start cutting down on their
Yes.
meat consumption, I would say try at least once a week to have a vegetarian or a vegan meal. Just once a week and see how it goes for you. And then slowly you can make those changes. You can start by changing your milk or look for meat alternatives. Or have a day where you're just having lentils, for example. I mean, not the whole day, but for your dinner, try to have lentils instead of meat. And small changes, but they make a big difference.
Yeah. In terms of, swapping something for meat, what can they bulk up dishes with? Like, for example, if you've got a meat curry or chicken curry, what would they replace the chicken with?
So there is meat alternative that you find in supermarket. I usually replace, for example, if I feel like having mince, I would use soy mince. And it, for me, tastes the same because I'm using the same spices and everything. And I couldn't really tell the difference. Actually, my dad is a meat eater and he could eat it 3 times a day if that was possible. I made him try my soy mince when I was back home in December, and he loved it. And he said that he couldn't really tell the difference.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What about yourself, Mohammed Faheem?
I think the best thing anyone can do is fall in love with eating vegetables, and most people just have this conception that they won't enjoy them. I was the same. I just thought that after every dish I have, it has to have meat in there. So if I have pasta, it's got to have meat. Whatever I eat, it's got to have meat. But if you just start eating vegetables, most people will actually find that they enjoy the taste of it.
Yes.
And I think it's really key because you don't want to not enjoy your food at the same time. So I think exploring different cuisines is a really good thing. So my personal opinion, but English vegetarian food, I can't really eat it. I can't really eat English. It just doesn't sit with me.
Bland.
But like Turkish food, I love it. Or any kind of Arab foods, I love them. So just explore different cuisines and find you will find dishes that you really enjoy, and then you will just start wanting to eat these things instead of eating meat. And I think one thing that helped me as well is I kind of set strict things like, okay, I might have meat for dinner, but I won't have any for breakfast and I won't have any for lunch. So I'm only having it one time a day to begin with before reducing down.
Of course.
Yeah, I've had someone who's vegan during the weekends. They indulge in meat then, which I think is a good idea to start with, isn't it?
Flexitarian, yeah.
Okay. What are your main, if you can pick 3 favourite dishes that you've kind of learned to make since you've become vegetarian, what would they be?
So I can't remember the name of the dish. It's a Turkish dish, and it's like a mix of green beans, red peppers, onions, just a whole load of vegetables. It's basically like a leafy salad dish, but it's really nice.
That sounds lovely.
That sounds good.
I really enjoy chickpea sochana.
Yeah.
I started to really, again, there's things that I just didn't like when I was younger, but now I've just started to enjoy them and not miss the meat, and I really enjoy that. Anything with chickpeas I really enjoy. And I like anything with pasta, so I like that tagliatelle. It's really nice. I like that too.
Thank you. What about you, Saana?
My favorite is my mom's vegetable coconut biryani. So I've learned to make that. So that's on top of everything. And I'm planning.
So that vegetable pilau, yeah, really nice.
So I'm planning to make that for Eid. Second one, anything with pasta. Pasta is comfort food, so anything with pasta. And then the third one, I try to be creative with all my vegetables. I'll probably make an Indian curry with lots of vegetables.
Right. I've heard people say that they need to, if they're going to give up meat, they need to eat a lot more of vegetables to feel full. Like, for example, they eat this much meat to feel full, like get satisfied. But just having lentils, they'll need to have like 2 plates full just to feel satisfied. Did you experience that? I mean, you're both looking like, what on earth, on your faces.
Yeah.
No, I actually think you might get more if you actually if you just have pasta by itself, you might struggle. But if you actually add vegetables into your pasta, so a lot of people say I'm having vegetarian food, but it doesn't have any vegetables in there. So it's got like your pasta or it's rice, but there's no vegetables. You need to bulk up with actual. You need to bulk it.
It's true.
It's true. I mean, if you go to a typical English or British thingy, takeaway or restaurant, they're not always very colourful.
So it's a vegetarian. There's no meat, but you need to bulk up with vegetables. Yeah. You need to put vegetables in there.
I like the way you said.
And
colourful.
that's the thing with vegetables that you don't feel bad about. You can put a whole load of stuff in there, and you can eat it, and you don't feel bad about eating it.
Yes.
Nice.
I found noodles to be amazing. So if anyone struggles with vegetarian, just chop peppers, carrots, anything, and put it into noodles.
Yeah.
And most people will enjoy it.
Also, Sana's Instagram page is a wonderful. Go to her Instagram. It's The Plant Kitchen. She's got lots of beautiful pictures of vegan food, and I don't know who wouldn't be inspired by seeing this. And she's got wonderful recipes up there as well.
Well, I try to inspire people with vegan food because a lot of people used to think that it's boring and it's bland, but it's actually not. I mean, a couple of days ago, I made a cake with avocado, lemon, and pistachios. I had avocados at home, they were going bad, and I didn't really feel like having a smoothie, so I just baked it, and it was a delicious cake.
But that's the really bad misconception about vegetarian food being bland. There's so much more taste in vegetarian food than meat food, because meat food is just, all you can taste is meat. And with vegetarian food, you don't even need to add many spices and stuff, because just the vegetables themselves give so much flavour to food. So
yes.
Just fall in love with it. People will love it. If they try it and you eat it regularly, you'll start to like it.
And what you said about the cake, people think that it's often really healthy. They can't indulge or have a good dessert or something sweet. What would you say to them?
Oh, no. And, there's this other concept of people think veganism is healthy.
Yes.
Oh, no, there is an unhealthy side of being vegan also. You just need to have a balanced diet, a healthy diet.
Right, so give me one vegan dessert which you really enjoy. You mentioned a cake just now.
There's loads. I make this mousse au chocolat with chickpea water. We call it aquafaba. So I make my mousse au chocolat with that, which is really nice. That's the top. There's tiramisu. I can make a vegan tiramisu. That's really nice also. And any kind of baking, actually. I love making muffins and cupcakes. So yeah.
So you can have fun What's being vegan?
Yes. And I think that I've become more creative since I've become vegan because I use different ingredients, different produce, and try to.
You can have Roundtree's fruit pastilles. They're vegan friendly now.
Really nice. And that's a great thing. Like things that sweets that we grew up with, which were haram and gelatine. I always
wanted to try Roundtree's. So when I grew up, like there was one sweet that I always wanted to try, and when I used to see people eating it, now I can finally try it. I don't know if it's as good as the other one, but.
Yeah, that's the benefit. A lot more things are becoming vegan now, so you can eat those sweets haram when we were younger. That's wonderful. Jazakallah khair. Now moving on to Eid al-Adha, we are obviously in the days of Hajj soon, and Eid is next Tuesday, and obviously that involves slaughtering an animal, and it's a contentious subject. So speaking from my perspective, what we do every year, we will do. Slaughter abroad for people who are poor in rural areas, and that's great, and alhamdulillah, that's good. But what we also do is my mum's side, they do an udhiyah or qurbani over here in the UK. So my granny will get her qurbani midday on Eid day, and she'll spend the whole of Eid day with my aunties and my mum and all of us cooking the meat into different dishes. It's a very nice, fun bonding experience, and then we'll eat it together in the evening. It is an absolute meat fest. But it's a lot of fun. It's absolutely delicious, and obviously we'll divide the rest of the meat into packages to share with family and friends. And we've always felt that meat has lots of barakah in it. It tastes nicer. There's a lot more of it, and it's just a wonderful feeling. And obviously we do feel that it's a blessed meat. To eat it, it's good for us. But I have been feeling, what's the point? The past few months I've been feeling, what really is the point of us eating more meat if we're eating meat throughout the year? It's just more meat. And what are your thoughts on this?
Can I ask a question? So I think I've asked you both this question last week, but I need to bring it up on the radio show. So my question was, is there a way to sacrifice without slaughtering an animal?
Obviously, Aamenah will give a more qualified answer than me, but the simple answer would be no, in my opinion anyway. Obviously it's part of the religion and one of the acts of worship. The problem is we start to make the qurbani a problem, but it's not the qurbani, it's the problem. It's everything we do outside of the qurbani that's the problem. So
100%.
if qurbani was like the 6th time in the year where you slaughtered an animal and you ate meat, then you wouldn't have an issue with that. But because it's like the 6 millionth time in the year when you're having to slaughter the animal, then so the qurbani itself, there's no issue in that, and I don't think there's an issue with sacrificing the animal. We need to fix everything we do surrounding that time.
Yeah,
exactly what you just said there. I mean, so to answer your question, Saana, no, you can't really give money or do something else. You have to slaughter an animal for udhiyah. It's part of our religion. It's like saying someone to them, instead of praying salah, just make dua. You can't replace one act of worship with another. It's something that's wajib once you reach a certain threshold. But I agree with what Muhammad Faheem said, that if we fix the rest of our year, then what my family does, for example, wouldn't seem as bad, because that's the only time of the year when you're enjoying meat, and it's become a luxury then. And it's obviously blessed meat because it's udhiyah, it's qurbani, you're enjoying that blessed meat from, the sacrifice. And back to, doing it abroad, that meat which you're doing abroad won't have such high carbon emissions because it's done in local fields, it's given to local people who don't eat meat throughout the year. So it really is a luxury for them and a lifeline, really.
Of course. I mean, I was telling Aamenah this earlier that my dad always does the qurbani for us back at home. And the population is really poor there, so they don't really eat meat the whole year. And what they get during Eid is something really precious and more, how do I say it, not helpful, but it's festive. It's a feast for them. So one part of me is happy that it's going to the population that needs it and it's being helpful. But the other part was always about, but it's still slaughtering an animal. But again, when we spoke last week, you mentioned that if you did it the right way, if you cared about the animal, then it changes the whole concept, which I really liked, yes.
Yeah. And obviously, ideally, we should be looking after the animal ourselves.
Yeah, that's something that always irks me a little bit because most people don't even understand the concept of qurbani. It's not just slaughtering an animal and eating it. Concept of raising the animal for a certain amount of time, allowing it to get to otherwise what have you sacrificed? You've just given a bit of your money away so that somebody else somewhere can slaughter an animal on your behalf. Like the Prophet Ibrahim had to sacrifice his son.
His sons. Yeah.
And then it was replaced by an animal. And then one of the next things a person can have a connection to after their family or the animals that they look after. But obviously we don't have that with any of the animals that we actually do qurbani to.
Yeah, we're so detached from that very beautiful and spiritual process. And I guess it would be hard if you look after an animal for the whole year and suddenly you have to sacrifice it. It's heartbreaking.
It really hits me because people, like you talked about the masculinity, and people would define as very masculine, but if you mention to them about going to slaughter an animal, they can't even come near doing it. I can't do that.
No.
So I think people should. I personally think people should do it. I think if people did it, they'd naturally have more compassion for the animal.
Of course.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
So are you doing qurbani this year back home?
Yes. So my dad will do it for me and my siblings. So yes.
What about yourself?
I'm always in between. I like to do what I can within the UK, and because there's really bad misconception that there's no poverty in the UK, and that there are people that struggle just to have basic food, let alone meat. So when I do find opportunities to give it to people in the UK who need it, then I'd rather take that option.
There's a really good initiative called Share My Qurbani. I don't think it's running in Leicester, unfortunately, but I hope in the next few years it starts in Leicester. But it's an initiative where you can donate your qurbani, your meat, to people who are living under the poverty line in the UK. And there are plenty of Muslims who are actually worthy of zakat because they are living in poverty. And sometimes we're quite aware of that.
Yeah, and next week, inshallah, we'll be interviewing a refugee from Libya about his story. And I remember when I met him and he said that his wife was in tears, and she was just asking for £1 to buy milk for her baby, and he goes, I couldn't even give that to my wife. So there are people that live here that literally can't even afford milk for their babies. So there are deserving people to give qurbani to. But then.
Yeah. Okay, inshallah, so may Allah accept all your udhiyas as well and allow us to do many more for people who are actually in need. And so obviously Eid is coming up. We talked about meat consumption. There will be plastic on Eid.
Yes.
I know for sure when the animal comes from the butchers on Eid day, we divide it into plastic bags. How can people reduce their general plastic waste on Eid? There's a lot we do.
Bring your own container, I would say.
Bring your own container, yes.
Yeah, that would be one of my things.
That actually seems
The butcher may look at you weirdly, but just tell them you don't want plastic.
Yeah, but I think, what you're saying is correct. I think people just need to start getting past that thing of people who look at me weirdly. It was the same whenever I got out to eat with my wife or family. My wife really instilled this thing about not wasting food. So that got a lot stronger in me after marriage. And people look weirdly sometimes when you tell them, can you pack the food for us so we can take it with us? But if you just do it a few times, you just become used to it. And eventually people actually respect your decisions and what you're doing.
Yeah. So there'll be a lot of plastic plates and cups. What would you say to people then? Because it is a hassle to wash lots of plates up.
It is. I'm going again. I'm really aiming for zero waste. It's hard. So, the next thing I would suggest is paper plates or bamboo plates rather than plastic. Those would biodegrade. Plastic won't, and they'll be there for a long time on our planet, destroying landfills and marine life and oceans.
Yeah, it's a shame. I remember going for spending Ramadan in the Haramain in 2012, and every iftar there'd be in the masjids. It was a beautiful experience, but there were plastic laid out everywhere for everyone to enjoy iftar, and plastic plates and plastic cups, and the number of plastic cups and plates that get used in the Haramain throughout the year, and then during Hajj is phenomenal. It is in the millions, and there is, I think at the time there was no recycling facility in Saudi at all. I think things have changed, but so how do we make something? It feels strange because something so holy and spiritual, we kind of pouring down the drain with our wastage, plastic use, and just not really thinking about where all this waste is going. So people can use bamboo plates or not plastic plates, paper plates. Yes. What about decorations, balloons, all the confetti, glitter?
No.
You work so hard for your money and it just goes down.
Yes. One way of looking at it is that way. There is biodegradable balloons if you really
even
want.
Things like having pieces of paper that your kids draw things on or whatever can be much more interactive for them, and then also just it's better for
and I think that's more meaningful. Having a kid do something for you is more meaningful than just confettis and balloons.
You can do paper chains.
Yeah.
You can
or
do
paper
chains.
bunting, or even fabric bunting, which you can bring out every year.
Yes.
Eid lights, we used to do that every year. Take out the Eid lights from the attic and string them all over
And I
the
guess
house.
even if people did use, like, if they did use plastic decorations, I mean, if they kept it and reused it, then it wouldn't be as bad, I guess, as them. What most people do is buy it and then chuck it, and then buy it and then
Yes.
chuck
Yeah.
it. So.
I know somebody, they've got, they get those balloons with the letters, inflatable ones. They've kept theirs for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And they reuse that, which I think is amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so that
Yes,
plastic isn't
mashallah.
great, but if you're going to use it for a long time, then it's definitely much better than buying stuff and just
Yes.
throwing
Throwing
it.
it away, absolutely. So we talked about balloons, glitter.
No, unless it's biodegradable. Otherwise, no, because it'll be here forever also. So definitely no to glitter.
Do you get vegan glitter?
There is vegan glitter. Yes, that's biodegradable. So yeah, yes to that if you want to, but otherwise, no.
Okay. There's also a lot of popularity in, you get the dessert cups, the small shot glasses with a tiny bit of like jelly or custard
Yes.
or some chocolatey thing inside. What would you think? Because they are very pretty. to
They're
look
very
at.
pretty. You can rewash them.
You
You
can.
can wash them and reuse them. So yes to that. But they're not very long lasting, are they?
No.
So no.
I think a lot of this is driven, like this, desire to everything to look very perfect is because of Instagram, really. There's that backdrop, with flowers and balloon. The balloon art is very popular at the moment.
Yes.
And or the dessert table, the glitter and plastic shots are very popular right now. So I think the desire to post that perfect picture on
Perfect
Instagram
picture.
is driving this behavior, really.
Yeah.
You can have a sustainable decoration. Take a picture and use the sustainable hashtag. You'll get a lot more views, I think.
I think so, yeah. And it'd be a good talking point, I suppose, amongst
Yes.
families. We didn't go for balloons this year, but we're doing paper chains instead, or
Yes.
bunting.
Yes.
And sometimes these are the only ways you can start those discussions with people. So when I stopped eating chicken or I stopped drinking milk or stopped eating eggs is when the discussions actually came. Otherwise, I never really had a chance to tell anyone why I don't.
Yeah.
No one just randomly asks me, why don't you drink milk? But when I say no to tea or no to having egg, then the questions arise and you actually get to spread that information.
Yes. You're raising awareness at the same time, which
People
is amazing.
come into the house and they say, okay, how come you don't have this? So you don't. And then you have the opportunities to have conversations with people.
Yes.
Have any changes happened in people's lives following conversation with you? Have they made any changes?
I think I've spoken to people and they've definitely said that they realize that they need to make a change. I haven't followed up with other people to see if they've actually made a change, which maybe I should do. But even within my family circle, so I think my kind of stubbornness to be like, well, I'm doing this, it's had an impact there as well. So sometimes I think it's just lowering your expectations a bit and saying, okay, we're not going to give up this altogether, but if I reduce it and then we'll reduce it together. And I've seen improvements there, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What about yourself, Sana?
Yes, my close friends, a lot of them have changed here in the UK. Back at home, less because they don't have all the facilities that we have here, but they do still try with the food, and there's not a lot of plastic there, luckily. So yeah, but my close friends have here, which is really nice. So when we go out together or we get invited to each other's places, it's nice to see that they don't bring plastic or.
It's really strange how some countries which we categorize as less developed, so Morocco, for example, Morocco has had a ban on plastic bags for years. So when you go shop in Morocco, they'll give you this little felt bag. So it's really interesting, I think.
Yeah, we have a ban on plastic bag in Burundi, and it's amazing because people were always into reusing what they have to save money also, rather than just buying something.
Yeah, that's one thing I always. You walk into an Asian person's house and there's a cupboard and the sink and there's a whole row of plastic
You have a
bags.
dedicated drawer for that at home, full of plastic tubs, different shapes and sizes. But they come in very handy. I mean, I used some the other day for making a slug trap in my garden. The slugs were eating my vegetables, so I had to. And before I knew it, they were great use. Yeah. Regarding myself, I think people were hearing me speaking about all this on radio last year, and they were quite fearful around me. And I was like, don't worry, I'm not perfect. I'm still working on this. But last year, my grandma didn't use plastic plates for Eid. We used washable, normal plates, which is really nice.
Yeah. Commitment definitely pays off, and people see it, and then they.
It does.
Yeah. So I happen with fried food. Like my mum actually quit. Like she stopped making fried food. So I used to not eat the samosas, not eat anything. So eventually your mum feels bad that you're not not eating anything. So she's like, okay, I'll put it all in the oven instead. And I think you can apply the same thing to this. Like if you're committed and people see it.
Yeah.
I think in the case of your mum, you're actually making her life a lot easier. She's not frying, there's no mess, there's no smell, just chuck it in the oven and it's done. So you're saving her so much time. So I think if people see the convenience and accessibility, or if it's cheaper, if it's easier, then they'll absolutely go for it, inshallah. So I think it's up to us to show how actually much better it is for our health or whatever reason. Anything on Instagram, Sana?
Decorate the home with fresh flowers bought locally. Yes, I do like that idea.
Yes, fresh flowers.
Fresh flowers are always nice if they've been bought locally. Why
not transported from Brazil or something.
No roses, no.
No, not roses. So have you got any other comments before we end our show for today?
No, I think it was a very informative show. I've learned a lot from both of you, and thank you so much.
Follow the, what's it called?
Follow the Plant Kitchen.
Yeah. And Green Guardians, so please follow us. We'll also be posting on our social media as usual, and we'll be having a litter pick soon, inshallah. We've had 2 so far in Spinney Hill Park.
I actually noticed, I think it was about a week ago, there was a young 2 kids with their parents just walking up Evington Road doing litter picking.
I think she's a member of our group.
Oh, is she?
She is a member of our group, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes,
See the change that you have brought to our community.
Definitely. So yes, please do follow us on Green Guardians List on Instagram. Drop us an email if you want to join our group, and follow Sana on the Plant Kitchen.
That's correct. Thank you.
Yes, on Instagram. And inshallah, we'll be back next week with a new program. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.